The laughter echoed through the golden halls of the Valorian imperial court like poison spreading through water. Emperor Velcora sat upon his throne of crystallized starlight, his forearms folded across his chest as his advisors whispered and chuckled around him. The holographic message from the Galactic Council floated before them all, its words demanding what the Valorians considered an absurd request. They want a diplomatic bride, the Emperor said, his voice dripping with contempt. These humans, these primitive creatures, who only discovered faster than light, travel a mere century ago. They dared to request a princess of our bloodline. His chief advisor, a tall Valorian with silver markings across his face, stepped forward with a smile that held no warmth. Your Majesty, the Council insists upon it. The peace treaty requires a symbolic union between our species. Symbolic, the Emperor repeated, tasting the word like something rotten. They wish to pretend they are our equals. The court erupted in mocking laughter once more. Valorians stood as one of the oldest civilizations in the known galaxy, their genetic engineering perfected over millennia. Humans were newcomers, barely worth acknowledging in the grand tapestry of galactic politics. Yet the Galactic Council had spoken, and even the mighty Valorian Empire could not ignore their demands without consequence. Which daughter shall we send? Another advisor asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. The Emperor's lips curled into a cruel smile. Bring me Seraphine. The name rippled through the court like a stone dropped into still water. Whispers followed, some amused, some pitying, all knowing. Princess Seraphine Velcora entered the throne room with her head held high despite knowing what awaited her. She was the seventh daughter, the forgotten one, the princess born with what her people considered the ultimate flaw. Her genetic scans had declared her infertile at birth, making her worthless in a society that measured royal value by bloodline continuation. She wore simple robes compared to her sister's elaborate gowns. Her quarters sat in the distant wing of the palace, far from the main halls. Her name appeared last in every official document, almost an afterthought. Yet she walked with dignity that no amount of mockery had managed to break. Father, she said, bowing before the throne. You summoned me. The Emperor did not bother to hide his disdain. The humans require a bride, Seraphine. The Council demands we honor this ridiculous request. Seraphine's hearts, both of them, beat faster, though her face remained calm. You wish to send me? Who better? Her eldest sister's voice cut through the air like a blade, and Seraphine turned to see her siblings watching from the side of the court, amusement dancing in their eyes. You cannot fulfill your duty to our bloodline anyway. Perhaps you can at least serve as entertainment for the primitives. More laughter filled the hall. Seraphine felt each sound like a knife between her ribs, but she refused to let them see her pain. She had spent her entire life being reminded of her supposed defect. She had watched her sisters marry powerful nobles and produce heirs while she remained alone, a living reminder of genetic imperfection in a society that worshipped genetic perfection. When do I leave? She asked, her voice steady. The Emperor waved his hand dismissively. Within the week. We shall provide you minimal escort. No need to waste resources on this farce. The humans are being assigned some ambassador named Kang. Let him deal with you. Seraphine bowed again, hiding the tears that threatened to spill. As you command, Father. She turned and walked from the throne room, the laughter of her family following her like a shadow. In her chambers, Seraphine allowed herself to feel the weight of her situation. She stood before her window, gazing out at the purple skies of her homeworld, knowing she would likely never see them again. Her family was discarding her like broken equipment, sending her to aliens they considered barely civilized. Her handmaiden, an elderly Valorian woman named Desha, who had cared for Seraphine since childhood, entered quietly. My princess, Desha said softly. I have heard the news. They finally found a use for me, Seraphine replied, her voice hollow. A joke. I am to be a joke sent to the humans. Desha moved closer, her aged hands taking Seraphine's. You have always been worth more than they could see, child. Perhaps these humans will recognize what your own people could not. Seraphine shook her head. They are primitives, Desha. What could they possibly offer me? Sometimes the youngest civilizations hold the oldest wisdom, Desha replied. I have read about humans. They are strange creatures, emotional, unpredictable, yet capable of remarkable things. Do not dismiss them as your father does. The day of departure arrived without ceremony. No family members came to see Seraphine off. No crowds gathered to wish her well. She boarded a small transport vessel with only 2 guards and Desha, who had insisted on accompanying her princess. As the ship lifted off and her homeworld grew smaller in the view screen, Seraphine felt something unexpected rise within her chest. It was not quite hope. She had abandoned hope long ago. But it was curiosity, a tiny spark wondering what awaited her among the humans. The journey to Earth took 3 standard weeks. Seraphine spent the time studying what little information existed about humanity in the Valorian databases. She learned about their planet, a harsh world by galactic standards, with extreme temperatures, violent weather, and dangerous wildlife. She learned about their history, filled with wars and struggles and somehow, impossibly, survival against all odds. By the time Earth appeared in the view screen, blue and green jewel floating in the darkness of space, Seraphine had begun to understand why some species called humans deathworlders. The transport descended through clouds toward a city called Seoul, where her new husband awaited. Seraphine straightened her robes and prepared herself for whatever humiliation came next. She expected coldness or curiosity at best, cruelty or indifference at worst. What she did not expect was the man standing at the landing pad with flowers in his hands and a warm smile on his face, a smile that held no mockery, no judgment, only genuine welcome. Ambassador Kang Junho bowed respectfully as she descended the ramp. Princess Seraphine, he said in perfectly accented Valorian, welcome to Earth. I hope your journey was comfortable. Seraphine stared at him, uncertain how to respond to kindness she had never been trained to receive. Kang Junho had read every report about the Valorian princess before her arrival. He knew why they had chosen her. He knew about the cruel jokes made at the imperial court, about her family's laughter, about the genetic defect that made her worthless in Valorian society. The intelligence briefings had been thorough, clinical, detailing how the Valorian Empire intended this marriage to be an insult. Junho had felt anger rising in his chest as he read those reports, not at the princess, but for her. He was 53 years old, a former military medic who had served in conflicts across 3-star systems before turning to diplomacy. He had held dying soldiers in his arms and promised them everything would be fine. He had lost his wife to illness 7 years ago and never considered remarrying. When the Galactic Council assigned him this diplomatic marriage, he had initially refused. But then he read about Princess Seraphine and something in his heart shifted. She needed someone who would treat her like a person, not a political tool or a punchline. The residence Junho had prepared was modest by royal standards but comfortable. It was a traditional Korean home that had been modified to accommodate Valorian needs, adjusted atmospheric controls, specialized lighting, furniture scaled for her taller frame. He had spent weeks learning Valorian cooking, though his attempts produced mixed results at best. This is your home now, he told Seraphine as he led her through the residence, Desha following close behind. These rooms are yours. You may decorate them however you wish. Seraphine's expression remained guarded, her eyes scanning everything with suspicion. You prepared all this for me? Of course, Junho replied. You are my guest, and perhaps in time, my partner. You deserve comfort. The princess stared at him as if he had spoken nonsense. "Why are you being kind to me?" The question made Junho pause. He turned to face her fully, his brown eyes meeting her silver ones with steady warmth. "Should I not be kind to you?" "No one is kind without wanting something," Seraphine said, and the bitterness in her voice told Junho everything about how she had been treated her entire life. He smiled gently. "Then I suppose I want something. I want you to feel safe here. I want you to know that whatever your family said about you, whatever they made you believe about yourself, is not what I see when I look at you." "And what do you see?" Seraphine asked, challenge in her voice. "A woman who has survived cruelty with her dignity intact," Junho answered simply. "That takes strength most people never develop. I respect strength." Days turned into weeks, and Seraphine began to understand that Junho meant every word he spoke. He made no demands of her, asked nothing except her company at meals when she felt comfortable. He continued his clumsy attempts at Valorian cooking, laughing at his own failures and ordering proper food when the results were inedible. He learned her language beyond basic phrases, wanting to speak with her in words that felt like home. He showed her soul, walking beside her through markets and parks where humans stopped to stare at the alien princess. But unlike the stares she had known on Valoria, filled with pity or disgust, these human eyes held only curiosity and wonder. "They think you are beautiful," Junho explained when Seraphine asked about the attention. "They do not know about my defect," she replied. Junho shook his head. "Humans do not care about such things. We measure worth differently." "How?" Seraphine asked, genuinely curious. Junho thought for a moment. "We ask, is this person kind? Are they honest? Do they make the world better by being in it? Your ability to produce children has nothing to do with your value as a person." Seraphine struggled to understand this concept. Her entire civilization built its social structure around genetic contribution. The idea that worth could exist separate from reproduction seemed almost revolutionary. "You are strange creatures," she said. "We know," Junho replied with a warm laugh. "We consider it one of our better qualities." One evening, 3 months after her arrival, Seraphine found Junho in the garden, sitting beside a small pond filled with colorful fish. She had learned this was where he went to think, to remember his late wife, to find peace. She sat beside him without asking permission. "Tell me about her," Seraphine said quietly. "Your wife." Junho was silent for a long moment. "Her name was Minji. She was a teacher. She worked with children who had disabilities, children that some people thought could not learn. She proved everyone wrong, every single time." "You loved her very much." "I still do," Junho admitted. "Love does not end when someone dies. It just changes form." Seraphine considered this. "On Valoria, we do not speak of love and marriage. We speak of duty, of genetic compatibility, of political advantage." "That sounds lonely," Junho said. "It is," Seraphine replied, and the honesty of her admission surprised her. Junho turned to look at her. "I will not pretend this marriage was your choice, princess. It was forced upon both of us by politics. But I believe we can make something real from it, if you wish. Not duty, not advantage, something genuine. What if I cannot give you children?" Seraphine asked, and there was old pain in those words, wounds that had never healed. Junho smiled. "Then we cannot give each other children. That does not change who you are, Seraphine. Marriage or not, children or not, you are a person. That is enough for me." Something broke inside Seraphine at those words, something that had been holding her together through years of rejection and mockery. Tears flowed down her face, and she did not try to stop them. Junho did not offer empty comfort or false promises. He simply sat beside her, a steady presence, letting her feel whatever she needed to feel. When her tears finally stopped, Seraphine looked at this human man with new eyes. "I do not understand you," she said, "but I think I would like to." "Then stay," Junho replied. "Not as my obligation or my political assignment. Stay as my friend, and we will learn to understand each other together." Seraphine nodded slowly, and for the first time since leaving Valoria, something that felt remarkably like hope bloomed in her chest. She was beginning to understand what Desha had meant about young civilizations and old wisdom. 6 months had passed since Seraphine's arrival on Earth, and she barely recognized herself anymore. She smiled now, genuinely smiled, not the forced expression she had worn at the Valorian court. She laughed at Junho's terrible cooking attempts. She walked through Seoul streets without fear, greeting the humans who had grown familiar with their alien neighbor. Her relationship with Junho had deepened into something she had never experienced before. It was not quite the romantic love that human stories described, but it was something equally precious: trust, companionship, genuine care. They shared meals and conversations, frustrations and victories. For the first time in her life, Seraphine felt valued. Then the illness began. It started with exhaustion that no amount of sleep could cure. Seraphine would wake in the morning feeling as though she had not rested at all. Her appetite changed strangely. Food she had always enjoyed now made her nauseated, while she developed cravings for combinations that made no sense. "Perhaps it is the Earth environment," Desha suggested worriedly. "Your body may be rejecting something in the atmosphere." Juno noticed her growing weakness with concern. "We should take you to the medical center," he said one morning when Seraphine nearly collapsed at breakfast. "Earth has some of the best xenobiologists in the council space. Let them examine you." Seraphine wanted to refuse. Medical examinations reminded her of the endless tests on Valoria. The doctors who looked at her with clinical disappointment, the results that always confirmed her worthlessness. But Junho's worried expression convinced her. The Seoul Xenobiology Center was a sprawling complex where human scientists worked alongside alien specialists to understand the biology of dozens of species. Dr. Park Soo-yeon, a cheerful woman with silver-streaked hair, led Seraphine's examination personally. "We will figure this out," Dr. Park assured her. "The human body holds many mysteries, and alien bodies hold even more. But mysteries can be solved." The test took hours: blood samples, genetic scans, internal imaging. Seraphine lay still through all of it, trying not to think about what new defect they might discover. When Dr. Park finally returned with the results, her expression was strange, not worried or disappointed, but genuinely shocked. "Princess Seraphine," she said slowly, "I need to ask you some questions. Have you and Ambassador Kang been intimate?" Seraphine felt heat rise to her face. Their relationship had indeed grown beyond friendship in recent weeks, though she had not expected such a personal question. "Yes," she admitted, "but that cannot be related to my illness. I am infertile." Dr. Park exchanged glances with her team. "That is what your Valorian medical records state, yes. But our scans show something very different." She pulled up a holographic image that made Seraphine's heart stop. There, nestled within her body, was a tiny form unmistakably alive, unmistakably growing. "You are pregnant," Dr. Park announced. "Approximately 8 weeks along." The room spun around Seraphine. "That is impossible. I was tested dozens of times. The genetic markers clearly showed. The genetic markers showed you were incompatible with Valorian males," Dr. Park explained gently. "Your reproductive system functions perfectly, but it requires certain genetic triggers that do not exist in Valorian DNA. Human DNA, however, contains exactly the combination your body needs." Seraphine could not breathe. Everything she had believed about herself, every cruel word her family had spoken, every year of shame and isolation, All of it was based on incomplete information. "I am not broken?" she whispered. "You were never broken," Dr. Park replied firmly. "You were simply waiting for the right match. Your Valorian scientists never considered that compatibility might exist outside your own species." Junho burst through the door, having been summoned by the medical staff. His eyes went immediately to Seraphine, taking in her pale face and trembling form. "What happened?" he demanded. "Is she all right?" Seraphine looked at him, tears streaming down her face, and spoke the words she had never imagined saying. "I am pregnant, Junho. We are going to have a child." Junho stood frozen for a long moment, his mind struggling to process this information. Then his face transformed into an expression of pure joy, not because he would gain an heir, but because Seraphine had been freed from a lie that had imprisoned her entire life. He crossed the room and knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "How do you feel about this?" he asked. "This is your body, your choice. Whatever you decide, I will support you." Seraphine understood in that moment why she had fallen in love with this human. He thought of her first, always. Even now, facing the possibility of fatherhood, his concern was for her well-being and her wishes. "I want this child," she said. "I never thought I would say those words. But I want to be a mother, Junho. I want to raise our child together." Junho pulled her into an embrace, holding her carefully as if she were something precious. "Then we will," he promised. "We will raise the most loved child in the galaxy." Dasha wept openly in the corner of the room, her old hands pressed to her hearts. "I knew it," she kept saying. "I always knew you were not defective. They were fools, all of them." The news spread quickly, first through the medical community, then through diplomatic channels, and finally to the ears of the Galactic Council. A human Valorian hybrid pregnancy, the first in recorded history. A princess declared worthless by her own people, now carrying a child that would bridge two species. Seraphine knew the news would eventually reach Valoria. She knew her family would learn that their joke had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. But she found she did not care about their reaction anymore. She had a family now, a real one, built on love rather than genetics. She had a husband who valued her for who she was. She had a child growing inside her, proof that she had never been broken at all. Whatever came next, whatever political storms awaited, Seraphine would face them with her head held high. She was not the discarded princess anymore. She was Seraphine Kang, wife of Junho, mother-to-be, and she had never felt more complete. The message arrived at the Valorian Imperial Court during a celebration of the Emperor's eldest grandson, yet another reminder of the bloodline's continuation. A servant rushed into the Grand Hall, interrupting the festivities with news that made the Emperor choke on his wine. "Princess Seraphine is returning to Valoria," the servant announced. "She carries a child." Silence descended upon the court like a physical weight. Emperor Velcora rose from his throne, his forearms trembling with barely contained fury. "That is impossible. She is barren. The medical reports from Earth confirm the pregnancy, Your Majesty. A human Valorian hybrid, the first ever recorded." The Emperor's face cycled through disbelief, shock, and finally settled on cold rage. This was supposed to be a joke. Sending Seraphine to the humans was meant to be an insult to both parties, a worthless princess given to a primitive species. Now she had accomplished what none of his fertile daughters had, creating something unprecedented. "Summon the Council of Genetics," the Emperor commanded, "and prepare the formal reception halls. If my daughter wishes to return, we shall receive her properly." His words dripped with hidden meaning that every courtier understood. This reception would not be warm or welcoming. 2 weeks later, Seraphine's ship descended through Valoria's purple skies. She stood at the viewport, watching her homeworld grow larger, feeling none of the anxiety she had expected. Junho stood beside her, his presence a steady anchor. "Are you certain about this?" he asked. "We could have refused the summons." "They need to see me," Seraphine replied. "They need to understand that their cruelty did not destroy me. And our child deserves to know their heritage, both sides of it." Her pregnancy was now clearly visible, a rounded curve beneath her robes that drew gasps from the servants who greeted them at the landing pad. Seraphine walked with her head high, one hand resting protectively on her stomach, the other linked with Junho's arm. The imperial court awaited them in full formal assembly. Every noble house had sent representatives. Her sisters stood in a row near the throne, their expressions ranging from jealous to confused. The emperor sat above them all, his cold eyes tracking Seraphine's every movement. "Daughter," he said, the word carrying no warmth, "you have returned to us changed." Seraphine bowed, not as deeply as protocol demanded, which sent whispers rippling through the crowd. "Father, I have returned to present my husband and our child to the imperial court, as tradition requires." "Your husband," the emperor repeated, his gaze sliding to Junho with contempt. "A human, a primitive from a death world." Junho met the emperor's stare without flinching. He had faced worse than alien disapproval in his military years. "Your Majesty," he said in flawless Valorian, "I am honored to stand in your presence." The perfect accent and respectful tone caught the court off guard. They had expected a stumbling barbarian, not a composed diplomat who spoke their language as well as any noble. "You have done something unexpected, human," the emperor admitted grudgingly. "Our scientists declared Seraphine incapable of reproduction." "Your scientists were wrong," Junho replied simply. "They tested only for compatibility with your species. They never considered that Princess Seraphine might be compatible with another. An oversight we shall address," the emperor said darkly. "But the matter of the child remains. A hybrid born of Valorian royal blood belongs to this court." Seraphine stepped forward, placing herself between her father and her husband. "My child belongs to no one but themselves. They will be raised knowing both their heritages, but they will not be your property, father." "You dare speak to me this way?" The emperor's voice rose dangerously. "You, who were worthless. You, who was sent away as garbage. Yes." Seraphine's response rang through the hall. "Because the humans taught me something you never could. My worth does not come from what I can produce. It comes from who I am. And who I am is someone who will not let you control my child." Her eldest sister sneered. "You have spent too much time among primitives, Seraphine. You have forgotten your place." "I have found my place," Seraphine corrected her. "For the first time in my life. My place is beside my husband, raising our child in a home filled with love rather than judgment." The court erupted in shocked murmurs. No one spoke to the imperial family this way. Junho stepped forward, his calm military bearing commanding attention. "Your Majesty, I understand this situation is unexpected, but I assure you my intentions toward your daughter have always been honorable. I married her not because the council demanded it, but because I came to love her. Your attempt to insult us both created something beautiful instead. Love," the emperor spat the word. "Human weakness. Human strength," Junho corrected. "Love built the civilizations we now use to reach the stars. Love drove us to explore, to discover, to survive our death world. If that is weakness, then we embrace it." A voice rose from among the noble houses, an elderly Valorian with more genetic honors than anyone in the room. "Your Majesty, if I may speak." The emperor nodded reluctantly. "This child represents something unprecedented," the old noble said. "A bridge between our species. Instead of viewing this as embarrassment, perhaps we should see it as opportunity. The humans have proven their genetic compatibility with Valorian blood. Such connections could strengthen our position in the council. Other nobles began murmuring agreement. The political wind was shifting. The emperor recognized he was losing control of the narrative. His joke had become a diplomatic incident, and now his court was considering the benefits of the situation he had tried to prevent. "This matter will be brought before the Galactic Council," he declared. "They shall decide the fate of this unprecedented union." Seraphine smiled a genuine smile that made her sisters uncomfortable with its confidence. "Agreed, father. Let the council hear how Valoria treats its daughters. Let them judge whether your cruelty or human kindness better represents civilized behavior." The emperor had no response to that. As Seraphine and Junho departed the court, followed by dozens of watching eyes, Desha whispered to her princess, "You have changed so much, my child." Seraphine took Junho's hand, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. "I have become who I was always meant to be," she replied. "I simply needed someone to show me that was possible." The Galactic Council chambers stretched across an artificial moon, hosting representatives from over 200 species. Today, every seat was filled, every eye focused on the central platform where history was about to unfold. Emperor Velcora stood at one podium, his expression carved from stone. Opposite him, Seraphine and Junho waited together, their hands intertwined. Between them floated a holographic display showing the medical evidence of their child. This council convenes to address an unprecedented matter. The High Arbiter announced, a being of pure energy who had presided over galactic law for 3 centuries. The union of Princess Seraphine Velcora and Ambassador Kang Junho, and the child they have conceived. The emperor stepped forward immediately. This marriage was a formality, nothing more. A symbolic gesture demanded by this council. It was never meant to produce offspring. And yet it has, the High Arbiter observed. "Continue." "The child carries Valorian royal blood," the emperor declared. "By our laws, it belongs to the imperial court. I demand the marriage be annulled and my daughter returned to Valoria where she can be properly supervised." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Several species exchanged knowing glances. They had heard rumors about how the Valorians had treated this princess. Junho spoke next, his voice calm but carrying. "High Arbiter, honored representatives, I must address the Emperor's claim. He speaks of the child as property, of my wife as someone to be supervised. These words reveal everything you need to know about Valorian intentions." "You dare accuse," the Emperor began. "I dare speak truth," Junho interrupted. "This council assigned Princess Seraphine to me because Valoria requested it. They chose her specifically because they considered her worthless. They called her defective, broken, a joke to send to primitive humans." The chamber fell silent. "I have documentation," Junho continued. "Intelligence reports detailing the conversations at the Valorian court. They laughed when they sent her. They expected her to suffer among species they deemed inferior. Instead, she found love, she found family, and she found that she was never defective at all." He turned to face the Emperor directly. "Your scientists declared her infertile because they only tested Valorian compatibility. You were so convinced of your genetic superiority that you never considered she might be compatible with another species. Your arrogance created this situation, not human trickery." The High Arbiter addressed Seraphine. "Princess, you have been silent. What do you wish to say to this council?" Seraphine released Junho's hand and walked to the center of the platform, standing alone where all could see her. Her pregnancy was obvious now, the curve of her stomach visible even through her formal robes. "Honored council," she began, her voice steady. "I spent my entire life believing I was broken. My family told me so. My medical records confirmed it. I was the princess without value, the daughter no one wanted. She paused, letting the words settle. When I was sent to Earth, I expected more of the same treatment. Instead, I found a man who asked nothing of me except my happiness. A society that measured worth not by genetic contribution, but by kindness, by honesty, by the content of one's character. Seraphine turned to face her father. You measured my worth by what I could give you. Humans measured my worth by who I am. You saw a defective tool. They saw a person. She addressed the council again. My child will be born carrying the blood of two species. They will know both their heritages, both their histories. But they will be raised on Earth, in a home where love matters more than genetics, where they will never be told they are worthless because of something beyond their control. This is outrageous, the Emperor shouted. She has been corrupted by human influence. She has been freed by it, the High Arbiter corrected gently. Princess Seraphine, do you wish to remain married to Ambassador Kang? With all my hearts, Seraphine replied. And you, Ambassador? Do you wish to remain in this union? Junho moved to stand beside his wife. There is nothing in this galaxy that could make me abandon her. The High Arbiter consulted with the other judges briefly, then spoke. This council rules in favor of the marriage. A child will be raised by both parents on Earth. Emperor Velkara, your petition for annulment is denied. Furthermore, this council notes with concern the circumstances under which Princess Seraphine was assigned to this marriage. We will be monitoring Valorian treatment of family members going forward. The Emperor's face contorted with rage, but he knew better than to challenge the council's authority. He swept from the chamber without another word, his robes billowing behind him. Representatives from dozens of species approached Seraphine and Junho after the ruling, offering congratulations and expressing interest in humanity. The first human-Valorian hybrid had opened doors that no one had anticipated. 7 months later, on a warm spring morning in Seoul, Kan Min-sira entered the world. She had her mother's silver eyes and her father's warm smile. Her skin held hints of both heritages, a beautiful blend of human and Valorian. 2 tiny hearts beat in her chest, and 10 perfect fingers grasped at the air. Junho held his daughter with tears streaming down his face. Seraphine watched them both, overwhelmed by a love she had never imagined possible. She is beautiful, Desha whispered. The most beautiful child in the galaxy. Years passed, and the Kang household became something unprecedented. Min-sira grew up bilingual, speaking Korean and Valorian with equal fluency. She played in gardens where ambassadors from a dozen species visited regularly. She learned that families came in all forms, that love transcended genetics, that her mixed heritage was not a weakness, but a strength. On her 5th birthday, as diplomats gathered to celebrate, a young Valorian noble approached Junho. Ambassador, the noble said quietly, I wanted you to know things are changing on Valoria. The younger generation sees what you have built here. They are beginning to question our old ways. Junho watched his daughter playing with children of 3 different species. Change takes time, he replied. But it starts with a single choice, the choice to see value where others see none. That evening, after the guests departed, Junho found Seraphine standing at the window, watching the stars. Do you ever regret it? He asked, wrapping his arms around her. Leaving everything you knew? Seraphine leaned into his embrace. I left nothing behind, she said. Everything I have, everything that matters came after I arrived here. Behind them, Min-sira had fallen asleep on the couch, her silver eyes closed, a peaceful smile on her face. She was the first of her kind, but she would not be the last. Already, other species were reaching out to humanity, curious about this race that had taken a discarded princess and given her a family. Already, old assumptions about genetic purity and compatibility were being questioned across the galaxy. The Valorians had sent Seraphine as a joke, expecting her to suffer and fade into obscurity. Instead, she had sparked the revolution, not through war or conquest, but through the simple, powerful act of being loved. Humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their military might. It was their ability to see value where others saw none, to find family in the most unexpected places, and to love without condition or calculation. And that, the galaxy was learning, could change everything.